So what do we mean by proof? I think we mean something that's supported by evidence. Well, what kind of evidence? Do we want evidence that is beyond doubt, or evidence that is convincing? Evidence in which we can have a high degree of confidence, beyond reasonable doubt, something that is entirely believable. Faith is central to living our lives. We practice it every day, we trust people we've never met, and we act on what they tell us. It's normal and it's reasonable behaviour. So it's not surprising that the Bible says that without faith it's impossible to please God. Mind you, not blind faith. The Bible presents to us faith that is based on evidence. Evidence that God gives us so that we can have confidence, good reason to believe. So let me put the question another way. Can we have confidence that Jesus was in fact a real historical figure who was born, who lived and who died about 2,000 years ago? How do we go about exploring whether an ancient person or event was real in any case? For example, how could we be sure that Socrates or Plato or Aristotle ever existed? You see, there's a great tendency nowadays to claim that truth can only be determined by scientific method, by experiment and by observation. But that simply won't work whenever it comes to historical characters, things that are historical and not repeatable. Instead, we rely on witnesses, records, and our ability to determine their reliability. Denial of the existence of Jesus is a relatively recent phenomenon, perhaps dating from the late 18th century. There have always been those who have denied the Christian claims about Jesus, his deity and his miracles, but they never seem to doubt that he did live. Going back through the centuries, the existence of Jesus never seems to have been denied by the opponents of Christianity. Deniers of a historical Jesus often base their claims on the absence of eyewitness evidence. To do so, they have to reject the eyewitness evidence of the apostles Matthew and John. So in a kind of a heads I win, tails you lose approach, they demand a certain kind of evidence and then deny the validity of it when they get it. Most people accept the reality of Plato and Aristotle, even though the most recent records of their existence date from 1,000 years after they died. In the case of Jesus, the oldest records are 100 years after he died. If you do a Google search on this subject, you'll quickly find that most modern scholars of antiquity, whether they're Christians or not, they agree that Jesus existed, that he was a Jew from Nazareth in Galilee who lived between about 6 BC and 36 AD. They take the view that theories of his non-existence are unconvincing and have been effectively refuted. But why do they think so? Our confidence in the truth of a report increases when we hear it from numerous sources. The value of the sources is enhanced if they're independent sources. The credibility of the report is greatest if the sources were unfavourably disposed towards the subject matter. There's no doubt at all that the Bible portrays Jesus as a real person, indeed as a remarkable person. The Bible records that Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. It speaks of Nazareth, where he was brought up. It tells us that he went about doing good and that Jesus was crucified. Most of the information we have about Jesus comes from the Bible and related Christian sources. But is that all there is? Josephus was a first century historian, a Jewish historian. He referred to Jesus on a number of occasions in his Antiquities, specifically relating his death under Pontius Pilate. This is an ancient non-Christian authority. The authenticity of his works is virtually undoubted. Another ancient writer called Tacitus was a Roman historian and a senator. In his work, the Annals, he makes specific references to the crucifixion of Jesus. His attestation to the reality of the man Jesus is particularly useful for two reasons. Firstly, as a senator, he was able to check out through official records the truth of the matters. And secondly, as a hostile witness, his writings were not sympathetic to Christians or the Christian message. So the testimony of an enemy is of more benefit than the agreement of a friend. But these evidences are not alone. The writings of Thallus, Pliny the Younger, Suetonius, and the Jewish Talmud also give clear testimony to the real persona of Jesus of Nazareth. You see, doubts that Jesus of Nazareth existed are simply not supported by the weight of historical evidence. His existence is entirely believable. But that invites another question. If there was such a person as Jesus of Nazareth, and there was, who was he, and how valid are his claims?